Bill, first of all, thank you for being here today. We certainly appreciate you coming out and doing a clinic tonight and taking some time to answer some of our questions here. We're pleased and proud to have you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Keith. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we kind of really get into the questions, I wanted to ask you kind of what are you working on these days and kind of what are the big things that you would like our listeners to know about that you have going on?
I'm doing a lot of cooking at home for my family and drive my kids to school early in the morning, doing homework with them. And in the meantime, I'm trying to write the new Mastodon record.
Okay. All right. I certainly understand those extra added jobs in life.
Yeah, when I come home from touring, there's no like rock star treatment at home. It's I'm just the dad when I get home. So
that's right.
Which is fine with me. That keeps my feet on the ground, and my wife is just like, okay, it's 6 a.m. You got to get up, drive those kids, get those kids breakfast made, and you got to make sure. The youngest son's got his math assignment ready, and the other one's got to study for his science test. And I'm pretty overwhelmed by being a dad and all that stuff. Even though my kids are in their teens now, it's never an easy job. But more towards the aspect of what I'm doing with the music and band, I just completed building another studio, like a recording studio that'll be it's kind of up and running right now, and it will be open for people to come in and record, and we have an in-house engineer, which is great. Someone really very close to me has worked on a lot of the last few Mastodon records very closely with us, and it's big news for me. I worked really hard in our downtime. We've been off the road for a few months, and in my downtime, I'm always working. I'm always trying to do the next thing,
just like I am.
Yeah, while I'm young-ish, before I get too old, where I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done that, and I wish I had this. I've always wanted to have. Yeah. I like having a studio. I've built a few of them, and I'm always working on new music. So I've been working on a lot of Mastodon riffs and songs, and as much as I can to always be one step ahead of what the record company might ask for, because they usually say, hey, can you guys do a cover of Oingo Boingo's covering Dark Side of the Moon by tomorrow? Like, we needed it yesterday, but it's for a lot of times they come to us as weird things, and they're like, yeah, we really need it like yesterday. And I'm like, we're not a factory where
you can just put in an order for a quick song, and then here it comes kind of thing.
We're not only artists, but we're just regular people who,
have life and a job.
We're not just sitting in the wings waiting for you to yell out a song for us or a request for us to do. No, it doesn't work like that. Like, everyone has schedules and lives, and we do the band thing. It's like fun for us, but it's a job. But it's also like when we're not doing it, I don't know. So, for the day where it's like, okay, it's time for you guys to write a new record, I'd like to be like prepared and ready, and that's. That's why I like to have a studio, somewhere quiet to go to make something demos sound really good, where it's like I can bring to the other guys and say, like, hey, this is what I'm working on. Yeah. What do you guys think? That's what we do we've been doing that for the past couple records. I spent a lot of time in my own studio in my basement, and just any little ideas come to my head, I just write them down, and well, not really write them down, but write them down, by playing them into my phone and save them so that I can remember them later.
Technology is so awesome that we can do that.
It is pretty cool. And then, I dump it all out, and I try to put it to a little bit of a drum beat or something in my home studio, and then add more guitars, and I got a bass down there, I got a drum machine, and kind of build a little demo of a song, and then bring it to the other guys and say, hey, what do you think of this? And, that's kind of that's my happy place is what I do. So everyone's really been pretty much resting and just not being on the road and just spending quality time being normal people with their families,
It probably takes a little bit to adjust back to normal life too, I'd imagine, really.
Yeah, you'd think. I mean, in my house, it's pretty much like straight back to the being
right to the grind.
Because my wife works full time, and then she when I come home, she's like, okay, I know you just got back from...
It's your turn. Like,
you
help
just
me
got
here.
back from flying from Dubai to Japan to Hawaii, back to the UK, and then home, and you don't even know what freaking month you're in. Tomorrow, you still got to get up at 6:30 and like get those kids off, because she needs that high five of like, your turn,
Yeah,
and
sure. Tag out and like let you get
and
in.
I'm totally down with that, as tired as I may be. So, but yeah, we're all just taking some well-deserved rest, and at this moment, we're trying to
get ready to write for the next
ready to
record.
write a little bit, but we're not focusing too much on that. It's more like we're getting geared up for this next and kind of final tour for Emperor of Sand, which is Europe, 2019.
Spring, summer kind of thing?
January.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's right after Christmas, like 2 weeks after Christmas, we leave for that. We're bringing Scott Kelly from Neurosis again to do a month long of shows over there. It's going to be cold.
Yep.
But like I said, with the new studio, we just busted out a brand new song that we want to release digitally before the tour with Scott singing on it, and that's... You heard it here first.
Okay, that's awesome, actually. Yeah.
We're trying to do that. It's a lot of. It seems easy enough on paper. Like, we'll just write a song and we'll just have
Record it, master it,
dude
get it
who lives
out.
across the country sing on it, and it's all going to be perfect, and it's going to come out like a week before we go on tour. But it's proven to be a little. It's tough. Everyone's got different schedules. Everybody's a moving target. Let's try. Hey, can you get in the studio on like sooner than later and write this? Kind of like we're doing with what Warner Bros. Do to us. Like, hey, we need this tomorrow, but. I think we can do it. Yeah, I think we can do it if we're all on the same page. So we're working on that, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. The song is still going to be there. It may not just come out, next week when we want it to. But
yeah, but that's still cool to be able to have a new product to kind of tour behind and something to gain some excitement and to be able to do it across the country kind of. It's pretty awesome, really.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing that for years. That technology has been around for a long time, but even when we did Leviathan in 2004, we wanted Neil Fallon to sing on the album from Clutch, and he lives over here, like in Maryland and DC area. And we were in Seattle recording, but he flew all the way out to sing the song with us. Scott Kelly from Neurosis also sang on that record, but he did it from his own studio and
just sent
Oakland
over the tracks
or Portland or wherever he was, and just sent us the tracks. And I was like, wow, how is that possible? You know what I mean? But you just email the files
it's just a
to
file,
their
that's all it
studio,
is, and then
he
you just
sings over and you just send them back. And back then it was kind of cutting edge. Now it's just
everybody did.
That's
it's
just
kind of a normal
commonplace
thing
to do it that way. But to me, the whole studio concept of having our own studio, it just means we can write and we can release songs whenever we feel like it, rather than
not have to book time and
mercy of someone else's studio, someone else's time, the record company saying, no, we don't have the money to like send you over here because you never know when you have an idea. When I have ideas for songs, it comes out of nowhere. I'm just like, hey,
here's something cool. Like, let me just write this down and record it. Yeah.
Picked up the guitar and all of a sudden,
whoops, that's a good
It happens
riff.
at the weirdest places. So luckily, like you said, with technology, I have my telephone. I can record it in there. Or I can just go down to my studio and just put it down to a click track. That way I have a tempo. And in 2 weeks, I've got a song.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. So we stock all of your ESP and LTD guitars. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with ESP and kind of what you look for in a guitar manufacturer, and in particular what you look for to put into your signature guitars.
I think communication is key. As with any relationship,
there you go.
You need to be able to express like what you're looking for, and you want reciprocation, if that's a word.
Yeah.
Like, you call up because you have an idea for a guitar, or maybe I need a guitar for tour, or maybe I have a change, or I got a wild stick up my butt. I want to add something to this, design or whatever. ESP has always been there. They're always a phone call away, and they're always drop everything to talk to me, which is...
Yeah, they're an awesome company.
Which is great, because they're not so big for their britches, you know what I mean? I've only been with them for a couple years, but time flies. Wow. It has been a couple years. But when I was with another brand for a while, and that just didn't really end up that well for me. So I knew that ESP was always kind of waiting in the wings because they had reached out to me a lot, and Chris Canella was the guy over there, and he and I had a kind of a relationship. So once I was free of my other duties with the other company, I called them immediately, and they were like, well, yeah, we want to have you, of course. My first question was like, can I design my own guitar? Because I didn't love all their shapes and stuff. Like, I know that they make great guitars. Guitars, no doubt about it. They sound great. A lot of my colleagues play them, and they look okay. They play great, but they weren't quite.
They weren't you.
They weren't really me. And I was like, could I design my own? Is that like too much to ask? And they're like, by all means, please design something. So that's when I took some time out and tried to design something that looked way different than. They have a lot of pointy guitars in there. It's kind of a very metal genre. ESP was. So I'm trying to change that a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, let's make something that looks really classy. That's different. It sticks out.
It's like a modern classic design kind of thing. It's really kind of cool.
Not that all metal guitar players would, gravitate towards. So I was like, maybe other kind of people will play it, like rock and roll guys, country guys, who knows?
Yeah, you don't know, really.
For me, I was just excited to make my own shape. So they ever since then, that's been great. They just the guitars are selling really well, doing really well. They're pretty on top of any little things I may need if I want another colored Sparrowhawk or something. They just made me a black one with the tortoiseshell pick guard that looks incredible.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a really cool look.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they just they mailed it right out to me, and they're like, oh, we got Japan working on a ESP version for you right now. It'll be there in February. And
that's awesome. Yeah, that's the only one that we don't have in stock is Japan version, and we were hoping we'd get one by the time we had you here. But
they're not a lot different. There's just the pickups are a little upgrade, and some of the hardware is a little bit of an upgrade, and they're made in Japan, not Korea.
Yeah.
But for me, when I first got my LTD, this one right here, the satin green burst, Army burst, I used that on the newest record like all day long, and I loved it. I was like, this is sick.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as you pick it up, like, compared to all my other guitars, I never want to put that one down. I mean, honestly, I'm not just saying that because I'm endorsed by them. It's like, I designed it, I pick it up, it's the satin finish, the neck is nice and thin, and it just feels really comfortable the way it sits on your body, and it sounds great, and it plays great. And that's really what's important is it,
sure, it's a sound and how it's going to play for you. It's a tool.
Yeah, you don't want it to be hard to play. Oh, it looks cool, but it's hard to play. I don't want that.
How much back and forth was there? Was that basically your original design, or did you guys kind of did ESP come back and say, hey, well, you know what? If we change this horn here and move this pickup over here, it'll be better? Or was that basically your design right out of the gate?
There was a little bit of, I think I kind of gave him, I said I have a shape, I took a shape of an RD and a shape of like a Firebird, and I kind of drew them out and traced them and took some parts away and added some stuff here and reversed some stuff here and sent it over to them, and they drew something and came back, but the body was too thick, like it was kind of more like up here.
Okay.
Like the, I don't know what you call this part where your belly goes. That part was a little thicker, and I was like, nah, think of like a woman's body, like, hips, shoulders.
A lot of people use the woman's body description when they're talking about guitars.
That's kind of what it is, I mean, that's like the shoulder and the arm, and the head goes here, and that's the other shoulder, and those are the hips, and it's kind of turned to the side like it's shaking its butt at you. That's
I hear you.
I don't know. That's just kind of what it is, and we didn't go back and forth too much. Okay. I saw their idea, and I just kind of tweaked it, sketched on it a little bit more, and they came back with something very similar, and I said, man, that looks great. Let's try it. And once I got one in my hands, I mean, I was over the moon.
Okay. So maybe one prototype, and then you went to the production guitar?
Well, the first prototype they sent me was what you see here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There wasn't any, I don't think there was anything different. I think the only thing different were the volume knobs were in a different place. And they had a different idea for the pick guard, but I kind of said, it was more like up here. And I said, let's simplify the pick guard. let's just put 2 knobs on it. Push pull.
Oh, so it's push pull. Okay, so coil taps.
Coil taps, yeah.
Okay. And then what about your EC series guitar?
The clips,
Yep.
That was what they wanted to do first. They said, well, let's do any clips. Can you design, since you play a lot of Les Paul shaped guitars, can we make something like that? So I said, make it as heavy as humanly possible.
Really? Because everybody normally goes the other way.
Yeah,
I want it as light as can be.
I like heavy guitars. So I said, let's make the guitar super heavy.
Okay.
It looks
thicker than a normal Eclipse guitar.
I think it is.
Yeah, it looks like maybe
because they wanted to make it heavier for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I got away with just 2 volumes, or a volume in a tone rather than the 3 knobs.
Okay.
I try to do less is more because I never use the knobs. I use the volume, but
I never use any knobs ever. Like I'm a turn everything up to 10 kind of guy. Like I never need a tone knob on a guitar for whatever reason. I just don't.
It's there in case you are in the studio and you really want to like fine tune something or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I didn't change a lot of things. I just came up with like the idea for the color and the
weight,
binding,
and
the heaviness. I was just like, make it nice and thick. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, but I used it on a whole tour in Europe, and I loved it. I was like, man, this guitar actually sounds and plays like a dream. It's great.
Yeah, it's a nice guitar. For me, the weight, I never really care that much about things like that. There's always a lot of times customers will say, well, can you give me the weight of, all your Les Pauls so I can pick the lightest one kind of thing. I never care about that kind of stuff as a guitar player. I feel like I can adapt to just about anything, like if I picked up that guitar or that guitar and you gave me 15 minutes and so here you go, go play the show, I would be able to adapt to it.
By all means, each guitar is different. When you pick it up, you spend some time with it and you're like, there's certain things I like about this one. And
it makes you play a little bit different too, I feel sometimes too, like maybe the tension of the strings.
Usually
or,
I pick up a brand new guitar, new to me, I will write something. It just gives me some sort of burst of energy to like
a new inspiration. Because it's a new tool in your arsenal.
Even if it's just like putting my hand in a different position and coming up with like a quick, different
riff or something like
riff, And I'm like, cool. That's why I own like 50 guitars. So I'll pick it up and be like, oh man, I love it. I mean, there's so many guitars out there and they're so beautiful. So
that's exactly how I feel. I feel like you can never have enough guitars. If you're a serious guitar player, they are tools and, they're just, there's like a special feeling about getting a new guitar.
They're individual,
Yeah, totally.
Especially the old ones.
So do you still have your Gibson Les Paul Custom Silverburst guitar? I know that was a pretty iconic guitar for you.
Yes, definitely. I own a few of them.
Okay.
I've probably had about 20 of them in my lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll buy them, I'll play them for a while, sell them to make room for something else.
And then go back, man, why'd I sell that? I wish I had that back again.
But the original first one that I ever bought, the 82, that was used on every record, I'll never let that one go.
Okay.
Because that one's super special. It plays great. I have a couple of those guitars. I have a lot of guitars I love, and I think they're awesome, but there are 5 or 6 that are just like, I will never let you go because
they're like the guitars.
They're broken in perfectly. They're never let me down. And they're just great.
So what are your main guitars that you just pick up around the house? Like when you're coming up with ideas outside of performance guitars or booked studio time or something? Do you have guitars? Like me personally, I have a couple guitars like just randomly sitting around the house that I can pick up and play when, I have 15 minutes and I try to make them all different kinds of guitars. So like I'll have an acoustic sitting upstairs, I'll have a semi-hollow body, like a shred guitar, just different guitars to mess with.
I always have an ESP laying around for sure because they've given me a few. So I always have one just like the one that's getting the strings changed, the Pelham Blue.
Okay.
I love that guitar so much. I can't even tell you, like the ESP Pelham Blue Sparrowhawk is like
your guitar. Yeah,
that's the greatest guitar I've ever played. Like I pick it up and I'm just like, man, the neck is like an Explorer thickness, so it's thin but it's wide, and it, you know, the neck, the frets are, it's wide so you can get your hand on it, and it just has the greatest action, and it feels, I can sit with it and it's so comfortable, and I can reach the high frets.
Yeah, that's important.
So I always have one of those laying around. There's always a Les Paul somewhere.
Okay.
I mean, I have a few of those. I have a copy, one called Woodbine, that a guy up in British Columbia in Vancouver made for me a couple last year.
Okay.
And it's basically like a Silverburst Les Paul custom copy, but better.
Okay.
Like there's something about it. He made like the frets just a little bit longer, so like your fingers don't slip off the edge of the fretboard.
Fingerboard, yeah, okay.
Fingerboard.
That happens, yeah.
And I was like, this actually, you're right, because that's what he told me. So you're gonna like it because of this. I'm like, yeah, okay. Let me try something that I always get wrong when I try to play it. And I was like, man, I got that right every time, because it's a little tiny 1/8 of a millimeter more steel on the frets that is catching my finger. So I play that one a lot. I just keep it in my studio for writing and creativity stuff. So
okay. All right, cool. What are you currently listening to? What do you draw inspiration from? Like, what did you listen to today?
I try to force myself to listen to music, because I never have time where I'm just like, oh, I got some time to kill, I'm just going to put some music on. You know, went out to see Sleep the other night, so listening to a little bit of Sleep, the band Sleep.
Okay, yeah, not familiar with
Matt Pike from High on Fire. They're like the original stoner doom type band.
Okay.
Let's see, Jesus Lizard.
Okay.
Went out to see them. They're one of my favorite bands ever. I'm listening a lot to this band called The Netherlands from Brooklyn, that are great. Really just, they kind of remind me of like the Melvins, Soundgarden, and Big Business all wrapped up into one.
Really? Okay.
They're really bottom heavy, and they're just a 3-piece. I don't know. I go back and forth, you know, it just depends. A lot of times I listen to old stuff like old Zeppelin or AC/DC or Judas Priest.
Yeah, that stuff never gets old.
It never does, and when I want to hear something I know is going to be good, I go right back, to that. Backwards to stuff that I know. I don't usually. I'm not as impressed. Impressed is not the right word, but adventurous, I guess, like as far as listening to new stuff, because a lot of it just lets me down.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, yeah, it sounds like old rehashed this or that, which sometimes it's done well, and I don't know.
Yeah, and you kind of gravitate towards the stuff that you started with too, I feel like. You know what I mean? So if you're talking about going back to those Led Zeppelin records or AC/DC records or something, I mean, that's something that early on caught you and inspired you. So when you have a second and you're kind of, you know, reaching for something or, you know, wanting to be inspired, you go back to that kind of stuff. Like for me, it was always like old school, early Van Halen, like that guitar tone and just the song and the presentation of it never gets old to me. I've heard it like a million times. Yeah. You don't need to hear it over.
I'm the same way. I think that just happens as you get older. You're like, well, they don't make music like
as good as they used to. Yeah,
it's true. You're just like, yeah, I don't know. It's just not the same. I mean, there's a lot of junk out there. It's just kind of cookie cutter crap. But that's why, you know, people do. They ask me, "What are you listening to? What's inspiring you?" I'm like, nothing really. Honestly,
the same stuff that always did. Yeah.
Like when you hear our records, a lot of those riffs were written years and years ago. It's not just like I'm listening to what's out. I don't listen to my contemporary music at all, like what everyone else is doing. I just don't. I just kind of. It seeps in, obviously, and I know what I'm looking for when I'm writing something. Like this riff's got to be better than the last riff. This got to be better than that. It's got to be heavier. It's got to be weirder. It's got to go to a different place that the last song or the last album didn't. And that's always what keeps us driven and kicking, is to just try to outdo yourself each time. It's not a easy thing to do when you're when it's
No,
you.
it's a lot of pressure, really.
It is, but you have to try to keep outdoing yourselves. And I feel like the combination of chemistry between, everyone in our band keeps us doing that. They're
Sure.
like, yeah, that sounds too much like a song you wrote 14 years ago. I'm like, yeah, no one's going to remember that.
Yeah.
But, it's true, though. It's like, okay, you're right. It does sound too much like that, maybe, but let's change it a little bit. Let's try a little bit different. So we do, and I think that's what keeps people coming back, is like, they're like, hey, these guys are kind of...
Yeah, you're expanding on what you're doing and widening your kind of palette of things.
Yeah, and it's not a huge jump every record, because you don't want to scare people away. You want to slowly keep morphing into a better and better band.
Right.
There's always going to be the haters, the guys like, oh, your first record was the best. And it's like, yeah, but that was 20 years ago.
No matter what you do, you're always going to have those kind of guys.
I'm not that person anymore. I'm a completely different person. I can't go backwards.
Your playing evolves, how you think of things
evolves.
I've
gotten way better as a songwriter and guitar player. You might not think so, but I know so. I have to live with myself.
So speaking about being a better guitar player, what is your practice routine when you're not on tour?
I don't really have one. I don't really have a practice routine. When I'm on the road, I do a lot of warm-up scales. I do lessons. Like I teach people in the mornings, like before the gig, like around noon. Okay. So I'm an early riser.
Really? So no matter what, if you're going to some city, like let's say you're coming here, I could book a lesson with you?
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I do that at every gig all over the world. And kids show up, might be one or two, sometimes it's 6 or 7, and we all sit down and play for an hour, and I try to teach them, what I do to warm up, and I never took any lessons, so it's weird. So I'm just like, hey, this is what I do. I don't know. This is what I like to do, and I don't think you need lessons but I definitely, if you want lessons, I always wanted them. My parents just never thought I was worthy, or they couldn't afford it. They're just like, whatever,
just a fad.
Just go smoke some pot in your room and play guitar. And that's what I did. It all out. And I figured it out. You know what I mean? I just kind of faked it till I made it, and then just now I'm showing other people what I do to warm up, because I realize you do have to warm up to play a lot of this stuff, and it does make you a better guitar player. And
totally.
Don't be afraid to learn the correct way to play your favorite songs. When I was a kid, we used to listen to records and slow the record down, or they didn't have YouTube where you actually watch someone else figure out the songs. And like sometimes I have to do that. Like, let me watch this guy. Like, let me see how you really play the song and figure it out all the way through. Sometimes I do it by ear. Yeah. But I used to just be half-assed about it and just learn it the bar band way. But now
that's what I always do too. Like, it's good enough. Like, no one's ever going to know that.
When you really learn what these guys are doing, when you listen to like a Led Zeppelin tune, and you're like, oh, it's just these 3 chords. It's not. There's all kinds of
little licks
nuances
and stuff built inside those chords.
There's all this stuff built inside, and that's where you learn.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people, same thing when they watch us. They say, hey, can you show me how to play your song? Insert one of Mastodon's songs here. And let me see how you play. And they'll play the bar band version. I'm like, no, you're missing all these notes. You're missing all this.
What makes the song so cool, and what makes it
unique.
Yeah.
But I always tell people to, like I was saying earlier, don't focus on your weaknesses, just focus on your strengths. Like, hey, I can play like these 3 bar chords, whatever. Well, look at the Ramones. Those guys
how many awesome songs that they wrote with those.
It's not about if you're like Yngwie Malmsteen, that stuff, he's a great guitar player, sure, but it bores the crap out of me after a couple minutes. It's just like, all right.
One song and you've heard it all.
You heard everything ever need to hear ever again, just once. Yeah. But the Ramones, I'll listen to them all the time, all day long, because they're creative, because they use only 3 chords or 2 chords and write these great melody lines that people can sing along to for the rest of their lives. And I try to teach kids, like, don't get frustrated. Just make the best of what you have and what you're good at, and eventually you get better at it. And that's what I did.
So how would one book a lesson with you if you're coming to their city?
You can just write me at butterslacks@hotmail.com.
Okay.
BUTTERSLAX@hotmail.com and book a lesson. I'm only doing lessons for Europe right now, but when I come back to the States, I always do lessons day of the gig, at the gig, around noon.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's a really cool thing. what advice do you have for somebody that wants to break into the business and kind of be in your spot, whether it just be, in a rock band or becoming kind of a guitar hero kind of thing? What would you tell them?
Give up. Don't do it. Stay in school. Do something else. Just do it for fun, because it's a lot of. I mean, there's so many people I know that they're my age and they're just getting started touring and stuff. I'm like, man, this is a long, hard road of touring and making nothing for so many years, and then you kind of get to a point where your band is huge, but you're still, you're comfortable. But I don't know, it's not like I guess it's not what I imagined it was when I was a kid looking up at these bands. Yeah, like, wow, those guys must have like 50 Porsches and like a house in every state and vacation all the time. It's like, no, you're on the road all the time.
And then you come home and you're dad. And you're still getting up at 6:30.
And like you don't know your kids because you've been gone for so long, and life is hard. I wouldn't trade it for anything, because this is all I know, and I love playing music. But I would really decide what you're trying to get out of it before you give up everything and try to become a musician for a living. Because
if it's for fame, you're probably doing it for the wrong
I mean, you can get famous,
if it's for fortune, you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. But, if it's to, like, for me, all I ever wanted to do was play guitar. Yeah, like everything was a means to play guitar. You know what I mean?
I was the same way, and then we just kept playing so much that people started liking us a lot and wanted to sign us, and then put us on the road. And I mean, got to think of it this way: everything's a business. Your band is a business. No matter how much you want to keep it just for doing it for fun, eventually, if you have to quit your jobs to go on the road and support your family, your pregnant girlfriend at home, or your wife, or your kids, or them going to school, whatever, it has to turn into a business. It has to be like, you have to make money doing it in order to keep doing it, or you're not going to have a family to come home to.
That's right.
And with that comes all sorts of, every time something turns into a business between friends, everything gets ugly. There's always someone, i.e. manager, record company, lawyers, the tax man, you're working for them.
Yeah.
You're out there busting your ass, sleeping in a tour bus, which, isn't all it's cracked up to be. When you're 18, it's great. When you're 48,
it's tougher.
It's harder. But don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say poor me, because I love what I do, but I would not want to start over in this day and age trying to do this.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I mean, follow your dreams first and foremost, but just remember that
it's not easy.
I'm here to smash them all down to the ground.
We're glad you're here for that. So one of my questions was to ask you what's currently on your pedal board. But the funny thing is, last night I got a text and it was like, hey, do you have a Helix that we could use? And you and I just had this conversation about how awesome that the Helix products are. And you literally came in and in 10 minutes took your sounds off of your laptop and loaded them into our new in the box Helix. And I said, hey, does that sound pretty much like your sound? And you said, yes.
Yeah. I can't say enough good things about finally finding this diamond in the rough, as far as like pedals, pedal boards, amps, everything all in one, portable. Put it in your suitcase and you're laughing. This thing called the Helix by Line 6, which I never was a big fan of Line 6 stuff in the past. I mean, I knew they had some good stuff. They had some stuff that was okay, but
you never found anything that you gravitated towards.
I never really tried a lot of stuff out. I just saw other people using it. I used some of it in the studio, but I never really. I saw some of their delays and stuff, and I was like, that looks really complicated. There's all sorts of buttons.
That green delay.
The green thing, that's what scared me. Yeah. I was like,
it's cool. A lot of people love it. It can make some cool sounds.
I like simple, and I was like, well. I was going with the Axe effects for a while, and that took a lot of time for me to jump from. And I never jumped fully ship from real amps to. We call them cheater boxes. Oh, yeah. But I still use my Friedman Butterslax head alongside this Helix unit, because the Helix unit is so easy to use, and everything in it sounds so freaking great. I mean, the amp modeling, I mean, I just can't say enough good things about it. The amp modeling, just the versatility of it is what I love. I called them up. I bought one. Usually, we get stuff for free or somebody discounts, but I was like, I'm just going to buy one because I want one today.
So bad, yeah.
I want it so bad. I want to plug it in. I want to figure it out. And I sat with it for a few months. I almost threw it out a couple times because I was like, oh man, does that sound good? No, it doesn't sound good. Does this sound good? Because every time you turn the knob, it sounds even better and better and better.
Yeah. So So
I kind of got lost so I put it down for a few weeks and I picked it back up again. I was like, okay, yeah, this does sound really good. And I watched a bunch more tutorials, and I called the people over there at Helix, and I know those guys they know me really well now because I'm always calling. How do I do this? Can it do this? Can it do this? Well, how about this? Can it do that? And every answer was always yes, it can do that. How do we do that? I don't know, but we can do it.
Well, it can be figured out. Yeah.
So basically, it was like $6 million man. Yes, we can repair him. Everything on it controls my Friedman, all 3 channels.
Okay.
It gives me great joy in all the effects and new ideas that I come up with just from turning the knobs on it. And
totally.
Trying new presets that are already in there. Just weird spacey sounding stuff to like a totally different guitar tone that I never would have seeked out before. Yeah. It's already inside there. And I mean, you can go all the way down to fine tuning, like how your speaker is going to sound coming out of that, straight into the front house.
Right. And what mic you're going to use. And how far away it's going to be, an inch to a foot. I mean, there's so many variables. It's almost too much. But if I just start small and get to somewhere where I think it sounds good, I just leave it, and then you can add all your effects piled up on top of each other as much as you want. So and save them and just be able to recall it at any time.
Like I was going to bring this with me on the plane, but I said, I don't have to do that. If they have one there, I'll just put it onto a card, or I could email it to myself, the presets.
Yeah.
And then I just download it into the thing. It takes 10 seconds, and then your rig is right there. And that's all you need to go on tour with. You don't even need cabinets anymore if you have a front of house PA.
Yeah, a good sound guy that you can trust to give you a good monitor mix and to EQ you out front.
So I could not be happier with the Helix, all this stuff that they make. It's cutting edge. It really is.
It totally is.
And I'm glad that I'm alive to use it, because your whole life you're chasing all these different pedals and you get all these chords and AC adapters and all this stuff plugged into this makeshift pedal board you got, and something goes wrong. You're like, what is it? Was it this? Is it that?
Yeah, you're on the floor scrambling.
This is all internal. It's quiet. It's clean. It sounds great. It's lit up really. To me, it's like the sexiest thing out there. One of my favorite things about it is the tuner. It's huge. I can see it from outer space.
I can see it from here. I can see it perfectly from here.
And there's no latency, and there's no clicks, and there's no gaps in between changing.
Yeah, so you can instantly go to a boost channel or whatever. Yeah,
you can do whatever you want. Yeah. It's incredible.
So while we're talking about gear, tell me, I mean, you've played thousands of gigs. What is your most epic gear failure that you've had? Or most embarrassing gear failure moment?
I don't know. There's been a lot of them. One time I had my guitar tech plugged the MIDI cable from the Axe-Fx, the MIDI controller that controlled the Axe-Fx. He plugged it into the out instead of the in, so that when I step on to change a channel, it never would do anything. And it was just stuck on the clean channel the whole time for about half the set. And I had no idea what was wrong. I could not figure it out until like the last song. And I finally looked behind it and said, you're not plugged into the in, you're plugged into the out. It has to be the other way around. And then I was like, okay, now it sounds like an amp.
Man, you went the whole set with nothing but a clean channel?
That's the thing, man. With this, everything you can see, you can see the path on the front of it when you look down. You can say, something's not changing, but all the pedals are on the front. Yeah. So you know what's going on when you look at it. With the Axe-Fx, which I think sounds is great.
It's just harder to use, and
it was just harder for me to use, and I couldn't. Every day I had to mess with it, and you have to open up your computer, and I don't know. I was just like, I want something, and then boom, this appeared.
Here it comes.
And I was like, give me that right now. I'm going to totally take that apart and figure exactly how it works and how to get it to work for me.
Do you have any final thoughts or statements that you want to leave our listeners with? Again, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and hang out for the evening.
No, I'm just happy to be here and stay in school, kids.
Well, again, thank you very much, and we look forward to an awesome clinic tonight, and hope you enjoy the holidays and your time home with your family, and are rested and recuperated to head right back out on the road in January.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.